I've lived on this land since before the HOA ever planted their first overpriced mailbox. My ranch sits on the south side of Lake Dorian, a spring-fed lake I legally own through water rights dating back 3 generations. That lake's been part of my family legacy longer than most of those HOA homes have had drywall. So when the HOA came around last year demanding I remove my private bridge, a solid cedar and steel beauty my grandfather and I built by hand, I gave them a polite no thanks and sent them the deed showing my land and lake rights. But no doesn't sit well with people like Linda Carver, the self-crowned HOA president of the North Dorian Lakeside Estates. According to her, my bridge ruined the aesthetic of their manicured community. She warned me multiple times. I ignored her because she didn't have the authority to dictate anything on my side of the lake. Then one night while I was away visiting my daughter at college, it happened. My neighbor called in a panic. A demolition crew showed up in the middle of the night under HOA direction and tore down my bridge. Just like that. No permit, no notice, no respect. When I returned, I stood at the edge of my property, staring at twisted beams floating in the shallows. I was furious, not just because of the destruction, but because that bridge wasn't just a structure, it was legacy. And that's when I got an idea. See, Lake Dorian isn't public. It looks public. It's bordered on the north by the HOA community, complete with their multi-million-dollar homes, infinity pools, and docks, all built under the assumption they had some kind of access. But they didn't. Not legally. I own the water rights, dam outflow, and water level control. They just didn't know it, or didn't believe I'd ever use that power. Well, now I had a reason. I contacted my lawyer. Turns out the HOA's midnight demolition crew violated a half-dozen property laws, and by destroying the bridge, they forfeited any good faith easement claims. More importantly, I was 100% within my rights to control lake access and water level. So I made a few calls to my water engineering friends. We mapped the drainage lines, took flow readings, pulled permits, and then I opened the valve, slowly, quietly, over a few days. The water began to drain through the controlled release system originally installed by my grandfather, designed to protect the ranch fields downstream from flooding. It had never been used to this extent, but now it served a new purpose. By the end of the week, Lake Dorian looked like a ghost. The shoreline had receded by nearly 50 feet. Docks hung awkwardly over dry mud. Boats sat useless on cracked earth. And the biggest hit? The property values of those lakefront mansions. They'd bought the dream of lakeside luxury, but without a lake, those $4 million homes now had a dried retention basin as a view. Linda stormed over in her golf cart, screaming about ecological damage and property rights. I met her at the boundary fence. "You destroyed my bridge," I said calmly. "This is just me reclaiming my lake." She threatened lawsuits, news stations, environmental boards. I handed her a notarized document. Full water rights registered decades ago. Ironclad. The fallout was glorious. Real estate agents began pulling listings. Homeowners filed complaints. Not at me, but at her and the HOA board. Turns out they weren't too happy she had destroyed a structure on someone else's property and triggered a disaster that could devalue an entire community. A few homeowners even approached me privately, apologizing, offering to rebuild the bridge at HOA expense. I refused. I eventually agreed to restore the lake. After the HOA paid for the bridge, signed an agreement acknowledging zero authority over my land, and issued a public apology. It was on the front page of the Pine Hills Gazette. HOA admits fault. Pays rancher $240,000 after bridge incident drains entire lake. The bridge? It's rebuilt now, stronger than ever. The lake? Refilled. But the HOA, their influence, completely drained.